and welcome to another edition of Aviation This Week. I am Bukola Koka, standing in for your usual captain, Bukola Joe Ketumbi. On the program today, we'll take a flight to the Federal Capital Territory, where conversations on the launch of the Nigeria Air are holding, as the federal government is set to wade in on the dilemma of trapped funds at a stakeholders meeting in Abuja. Right after that, we'll take a connecting flight back to Lagos to hear from travelers in the nation's commercial nerve center.
Nigeria Air, the proposed national carrier, is to commence full operations before May 29, 2023. At an aviation stakeholders forum in Abuja, the Minister of Aviation, Senator Hadi Sirika, made the revelation. At the last aviation stakeholders forum in Abuja, the issue of flight commencement for Nigeria Air dominated the conversations. There was also talk on trapped funds. The Minister of Aviation, Senator Hadi Sirika, begins the discussions as he reflects on the accomplishments of the federal government and assures airline operators that issues of blocked funds will soon be confined to history.
The benefits, of course, will be to reduce capital flights, to gain optimal benefit from our masters and bassers, and of course the upcoming SATEM, and to develop an aviation hub, and to contribute to the GDP and facilitate hospitality and tourism. This is and facilitate growth and development of the Nigerian agriculture sector, create jobs. But a particular interest is the SATEM. So quickly, and I think this is not to you, perhaps to people viewing us, is that the SATEM, the single African air transport market, it's an AU Agenda 2063 item intended towards integration of Africa, intra-trade within Africa, intra-commerce within Africa, cohesion, and the ease of doing business within Africa, and general contribution in the general term to the economy of Africa itself. And it was arising from the Yamoussoukro decision, declaration, etc., the so-called YD, which Nigeria championed at a time when Nigeria had the advantage of having an airline that was very dominant, the Nigeria Airways. So we thought to open the skies in Africa. And that has to be done. And of course, there is no going back because all African heads of states have already signed the declaration, and more than half of them have signed the solemn implementation. And I think the implementation will begin soon.
The minister also shares the good news about Nigeria's national carrier and further explains issues around the trapped funds saga.
Why should there be a strong national carrier? We've talked about it really honestly, but I think everybody believes in us that we will continue to support these airlines to do their business and increase their capacity. And we're not going to hinder them if they want to interline, codeshare, agree, partner, purchase shares of other international airlines. Especially if they want to partner with an African airline. And in fact, maybe perhaps I will crave your indulgence to speak a minute. When we were setting up the Nigeria Air Limited, my gut feeling, really honestly, is to partner with airlines that I think will add value, that have finance experience and profile, high profile, such as either Emirates, but they don't do that, Qatar, Lufthansa, and the rest of them. Gut feeling. And those who work closely with me know that this is my focus, and this is what I wanted to achieve. Because I believe if you partner with Lufthansa, for example, automatically you have the EASA and all the certification you need, and you just fly.
Speaking on safety, the newly established Nigeria Safety Investigation Bureau's Director General explains the agency's function in averting accidents.
The whole idea of this is to enhance safety. This is why it is a safety investigation agency. We are not for liability's sake. Our reports are not meant to be used in court. We are not police that will determine who is at fault, who is not at fault. Police role for investigation is still in existence. but they investigate for liability sake.
Aviation practitioners are optimistic of an improved aviation sector as the countdown of the end of the administration of President Buhari begins.
Nigerians have been expressing mixed feelings about the proposed launch of the national carrier, Nigeria Air. While some say it's a good development, others have reservations about the federal government's modus operandi on the launch. Let's hear them.
It's a potpourri of mixed feelings for many Nigerians with the announcement of the launch of Nigeria Air, due to commence by May 29, 2023. Aviation professionals and other experts share their opinions of the expectations on the launch of the new national carrier. For some, it's a welcome event.
A wonderful thing that Nigeria has its own carrier. We have had it before. We had Nigerian Airways, and it was fantastic because it's the pride of the nation. Now that Nigeria has improved in the last couple of the years where the plane has been grounded, I think we are looking forward with excitement to have another one. We are going to be part of the committee of the world if we have a carrier. So many poorer countries or smaller countries than Nigeria, like Ethiopia, they have their airline. So if we have our own too, they are going to employ more, they are going to increase services, they are going to pay tax. We only hope it will not go the way of the past, where all the government think is part of their entitlement. They will come in with all their families without paying, and they will ruin it. If it's going to be organized and run effectively like other private airlines will say, I think it's a welcome idea.
Now, it is a good idea if it will be run properly. At one time, we had the best carrier in Africa. In fact, the world was proud of our captains, our airline. So if we can have it back better than we had before, that would be something of very interesting.
As for other Nigerians, bringing in Nigerian local carriers as investors will be a better option.
I don't know why we can't bring in the local airlines to buy into Nigeria here in forms of shares. I know we have up to 5 good airlines operating locally. I would have preferred bringing these ones on board to contribute 2 planes, 1 plane, and the Nigerian state can probably have like 50 or 20 to kickstart it, rather than bringing a rival carrier to come and exploit us. We have the capacity. We have Nigerians who can actually put their own money into it.
As May 29th gradually draws near, many Nigerians are looking forward to the launch of the national carrier under this present administration. But as Mata already observed, the independence of the new carrier will do a long way in ensuring effective management and control.
We have acquired the land. The federal minister has given us a tentative approval. We need to just finalize the survey and get the experts, to finish the report. At the last time I checked, they were doing the charting to see, the safety measures that are required for a final approval for an airport. With an airport, safety is the main consideration. So they want to make sure that the approaches that we have, the approaches into the airport for landing into the runways, for instance, are clear and safe and will not endanger, the aircrafts. So those are the final reports that are being and studies that are being conducted. And as soon as we get the final approval, we will break ground and commence construction of that airport. Like we said, it makes sense. It's not a political project, because between Benin City and Abuja on this axis, which is more than 600 kilometers, there's no airport. So it just, from a transport standpoint, it makes a lot of commercial sense to have an airport in Edo North in this axis. And more importantly, You can see there are a lot of emerging businesses, particularly in the area of mining, in academia. You have Federal Polytechnic, you have university, you have 2 cement companies producing over 6 million tons of cement. I mean, you have several mining companies. So there is enough activities to sustain an airport in this axis.
For some, the naira redesign policy is creating too much suffering for Nigerians and also slowing down the economy. Others believe that beyond the negative impact on the economy, there is currently a low perception of governance. The aviation sector is also experiencing its fair share of the challenges. The domestic terminal of the Murtala Mohammed Airport in Lagos is filled with intending passengers waiting to board their flights. Some of them expressed their displeasure on the current naira swap crisis.
I left home because I couldn't get cash to actually take me down from my exact location to the airport. I needed to wait for someone who had enough cash to actually walk down to my place. And you could look at the time, between the time I stay at my 12. If you look at between someone that is coming from Surulere, just because I couldn't have a cash to meet up at the airport, and join me at my 12, look at the time, and I had a flight for 11:30 this morning. So before that person could even meet me at my own place, before I could walk down here, I got here at exactly 11 o'clock, and they said the flight I missed the flight already.
Low activities at the Ibadan airport. For some of the passengers, the naira policy is a welcome idea, but the timing is inappropriate.
As a traveler, it's been difficult as well, because getting here this morning, I booked online, so that did not really pose a problem. So in a way, it has really affected in a great deal. But at the same time, on the flip side of it, it's a way of trying to make our naira to have value. You know, when you see someone holding 1,000 naira right now, you would know that, oh, he's holding a cash. But just like or in the past, that it was so cheap to hold on to naira, 1,000 naira. But now when you see 1,000 naira, you will really appreciate it.
It's a different atmosphere at the Abuja airport. Passenger traffic is a bit on the high side, but the story is the same. Some of them appeal to the government to make the old and new naira notes legal tender.
Why would the government do something like this and they are not really thinking about the poor masses? It's not really right. For me, I feel it's not right. I feel they should have any of the policy the government is doing should have a kind of human face.
In Kaduna, the airport is almost the shadow of itself. The service providers are also unhappy with the policy implementation.
And most of our customers here, they do transfer. They don't come with money. That is it.
It is really biting hard. It has affected the influx of passengers here and possibly other transactions around the airport. On the normal times, on a normal day, we operate a full capacity of flight operations. With assistants, we operate between 50 to 60 passengers as against the 120, 126. So it's really biting hard.
Passengers at the Asaba International Airport also shared their views.
Majority don't have access to the money now. But I'm looking at it as something that is temporary. Why not we enjoy it for this 15 to 16 days? I believe things will go back to normal.
Well, for entry into the airport at the gates, you can transfer through your app, and then there's also POS that's available for payments. And we know it's an airport that is very busy, and then we've also increased the number of POS we have there to ensure quick passenger and the facilitation of movement and the people into the airport.
For now, Nigerians are eager to put the challenges of the naira redesign behind them and move on with their normal lives.
Time for a break now, but when we come back, we'll be speaking with an aviation executive on the matter of trap funds belonging to foreign airlines. Welcome back. The Chief Executive Officer of Waka Now Nigeria, Mrs. Adenike Macaulay, speaks on the impact of trapped funds of foreign airlines, the launch of Nigeria Air on the national aviation industry, and other matters.
The first and major effect, of course, apart from the effect on the airlines having their funds trapped for months, at this point, months on ending, but the major effect would be on the customers. And that's increasing average ticket prices. Since I think this issue started a little over a year ago, towards the first quarter of last year, and what the airlines have had to do to sort of hedge against the impending risk of having their funds trapped for an undefined period, and those funds being trapped in naira, and with the weakening position of the naira, it means the value of their funds in foreign currency, of course, begins to deplete for the duration of the period that it is trapped. What the airlines have done to mitigate against this impending risk of funds devaluation is really to not increase their prices, but to restrict access to the low-ticket inventories in the market. Now, I would use a simple example. If the average fare from Lagos to London is $1,000, so airlines file their fares in USD, regardless of point of commencement. So if you're buying from the UK, the US, South Africa, it is always $1,000 flying from Lagos to London. Now, to buy it in different points of sales, it would be based on the BASA, the bilateral air service agreement between the country of the point of sale and the home country of the airline. So in this case, between Nigeria and the UK. And the BASA would ensure that the airline is actually bound to sell in local currency, in our case, which is naira. So that's $1,000. They sell it at a rate that is regulated by IATA, the International Air Transport Association. For the sake of simple maths, would peg that at 100 naira to $1, which means an airline sells $1,000 out of Nigeria today. It is 100,000 naira at 100 naira rate of exchange. Now, if somebody is purchasing that same ticket from the UK or from the US, the person pays in pounds in the UK, person pays in USD out of the US. The airline gets their funds immediately, no issues of repatriation. Now, in our case, the airlines have seen that their 100,000 naira, which is meant to be pegged at $1,000 in value based on the IATA exchange rate, is not always $1,000 at the end of the unending months of it being tracked with the CBN. And even over and above that, when they go into the I&E window to bid for repatriation of funds, the I&E window is where most of the investors in Nigeria and foreign investors go to bid through their banks to access their funds at the agreed CBN rate. Now, the same BASA that kind of binds the airlines to sell at this defined rates also binds the Nigerian government, the CBN, to make Forex available to the airline at the defined rate of 100. But the airlines have seen that as they bid, the rate that they get from the I&E window is a bit divergent from the CBN rate. So which means that the value, 100,000 naira, that they expect $1,000 starts to become 950, 900, 800. And as the gap between that rate and the parallel market rate begins to extend, the risk for the airline begins to get larger and larger. Right now, the gap between the IATA rate and the parallel market rate is around 60%. So today, the parallel market rate is around 750. The IATA rate was just actually last week increased from 462 to 551. So it has reduced the gap a bit to 40%. That's some of the things that came out from the meeting with the Ministry of Aviation. But still, there is this huge gap, which is the risk that the airlines see selling in naira. So what they have done is to take out those low ticket inventory that puts them within a profit margin that does not allow, should that devaluation risk become a reality, which means should they lose today 40% of the value of that naira that they have trapped, should they lose the value in USD based on the exchange rate being merged to the parallel market rate, which is what we see that has happened last week. So last week, like I said, the rate was moved from 462 to 551, closing the gap a bit. So which means that airlines that did not make the decision to start restricting inventory already lost 20% of the value that they had trapped just last week, just by that adjustment that was done. I'm in an interesting position in this whole thing because I spent a couple of years on the airline side at Lufthansa Group. And in 2016, we were in this same position with trap funds. It didn't span this long, but we're in this same position, and I understand the rationale for the airlines to make the decision to hedge their risk a bit. Should they need to look towards the parallel market to repatriate their funds, then it would be at a huge loss to them. Airline margins are, on the average, 5%. Yeah, so which means that is the risk window that they actually have to play around with. But if they're operating in a market where they risk losing 40 to 60% of the value of their ticket sales, then they have to make the decision to hedge against this risk. And what have they done? Reduce access to low ticket inventory. So what does that mean for the customer? The ticket that was costing them $1,000 last year, which is 100,000 naira last year, now costs between 150 to 200,000. Now, they did not increase the fares, which means that a customer can still go to the UK and buy that ticket for $1,000 if you have dollars. You can go to the US and buy it. You can go to the UK if you have pounds, go to South Africa and buy it if you have rand. But if you're going to buy it out of point of sale Nigeria in naira, they've closed down the $1,000, $2,000, $3,000. They made available only the high, we call it RBDs, high ticket RBDs, high fare RBDs. They are more flexible, of course, there is much more value, but we know that the majority of the market typically goes for that lower fare range, which are more restrictive. But at the end of the day, giving the customers the flexibility of choice across all the available fare structures that the airlines have is what has been restricted now to Nigerian customers buying in naira out of Nigeria. So the real impact on travel as we know it is really an increase in average ticket prices of between 50 to 100%. Some have even doubled at the minimum, based off of the difference between what is available now and what should naturally be available from the airlines is about 50%. And the customers today bear the brunt of that, unfortunately.
As we move to the foreign scene now, in Europe, airline operators are seeking alternatives to jet engine fuel by employing the use of hydrogen-powered engines.
A German company that specializes in developing hydrogen electric aviation technology has recently refitted a hydrogen-powered aircraft and operated the aircraft into the sky as the country is striving to ease the energy crisis. The four-seater aircraft, powered entirely by hydrogen, has taken test flight for over 100 hours. As hydrogen-powered aircraft can achieve zero greenhouse gas emission and the fuel costs are 2/3 cheaper than aviation kerosene costs at present, several companies in Europe and the US are developing and testing hydrogen-powered aircraft. The German company is currently working on refitting a 40-seat hydrogen-powered aircraft, which the company expects to take test flight in 2025 and put into commercial operations in 2029.
We will have an electric motor, so the propeller here will stay the same. Exactly, so we will have here the fuel cell inside, and then the next part will be the motor here.
According to the emission reduction plan formulated by the European Union, the region will ban the sale of fuel vehicles by 2035 and achieve carbon neutrality by 2050, and 2023 will witness the accelerated development of new energy vehicles. For many, expectations are high, with anticipated positive impact on the environment.
And this is where we touch down on the program today. Thank you for watching. We'll return next week with more aviation stories. I am Bukola Koka. Bye for now.